Today I've got a rush job for you. A few days ago we realized that we really needed a small writing desk for my son, and we kind of needed it yesterday. Now in the corner of my shop I found this gorgeous piece of oak veneer plywood. It's got this beautiful straight grain and we thought it would make a nice top. This was left over from when I made the office side table way back last December. It needs to be quick, so it's going to be basic building techniques, but I hate to make ugly, so I'm still going to try and work in a few nice details. I went online and searched for mid-century modern writing desk images and then also for shaker style desks and looked at a whole bunch, and then I started to doodle some ideas on paper. Then I jumped into Sketchup and threw together this design in about 30 to 40 minutes. The top is going to be about 24 inches wide by 48 inches long and made of plywood. To try and dress it up a bit, I had the idea to add these fake breadboard ends. I thought it might make things a bit more interesting and less like a plain plywood top. There'll be 4 square legs, tapered on the inside bottoms, and some upper and lower stretchers to reinforce things. All of this understructure will be red oak, but I'm not using dowels or tenons or anything like that. These will be attached with pocket hole screws, in keeping with the nature of this being a rush job project. For the front rail, I thought I'd make this little arch in it to add a bit of visual interest and for leg clearance when you're sitting at it. I'd really like to add a drawer or two here, either one in the middle or maybe a smaller one on each side, but you know, rush job, remember? So what I'm going to do is make sure that this piece is not glued to the table at all. It's just going to be held in place with pocket screws. In that way, maybe in a few months I can come back to this project and remove the front rail and rebuild it to include drawers. We'll see. So with the model built, I added all the needed dimensions to the model and printed it off to guide me in the workshop. So sometimes it's nice that you keep lots of little bits. These came out of my scrap pile, and this is going to provide the edging for the front and back part of the desk. And these 2 pieces I've just roughed out, which will be the faux breadboard ends on the desk. I ripped the strips to width, cut the tabletop to length, and then I attached the trim strips with glue and pins. I used glue and sawdust to hide the pinholes, and that mostly worked. And here I'm drilling dowel holes for attaching the breadboard ends to the tabletop. Here I have the faux breadboard dry fit on the end of the plywood. I know I'm not going to get a perfect joint here. You never do with a breadboard. And so I'm going to chamfer both edges with the block plane and just make a shadow line. What I do here is I just count my strokes, and that makes sure that I get a consistent look on all the edges. And now I'm gluing those fake breadboard ends onto the end. I used 6 dowels. I think I probably would have used more if I did it again, just for a little bit more support. I've used almost every one of my big parallel clamps, and yet this is only enough wood for 4 legs on a project. That's it. Nobody ever has enough clamps. I wanted 2-inch thick legs, so I glued up stock for that, and then once it was glued I jointed them and planed them and ripped them down into 2-inch blanks. I clamped them all together and trimmed them to the exact same length. Here I'm marking the bottoms to guide me and tapering them down to 1 1/4 inch size at the foot. And here I'm blocking the camera shot while I'm doing the taper. Oh well. Yeah, the taper doesn't start all the way at the top. It starts below the lower cross piece. This is the board that's going to go in the front. We need to sort of figure out the curve, and yeah. And it's upside down, of course, which is always a pain with tables. You sort of have to dry fit it and then visualize it upside down, because doing a dry fit right side up is really kind of hard. So after drawing that arch, I'm first making a whole bunch of relief cuts, and then I'm cutting out the curve on the small bandsaw, and then I move to the big bandsaw for the long rip cut, which is straight, so it works better that way. So here's the situation. I know I said I was using pocket holes, but it's early Sunday evening. I'm not going to the store anymore, and I need 1.5 inch fine pocket hole screws. And 1.5 inch is not really the common size. Most pocket holes are usually dowling with 3/4 inch stock, so they use the 1.25 inch screws. I'm working with thicker stock, so I need the 1.5 inch screws, and I only have enough for maybe half of the joints, if that. So I know I said I was trying to be quick, but I wanted to keep working, and So the leg assemblies, they're going to be dowels. I'm actually kind of happy with that because I like dowels. Getting glue spread evenly on all the holes can be a bit finicky, but it's very important. The dowels that I use are compressed hardwood, so they swell as they absorb the moisture from the glue and they really lock the joint tight. And of course then using water-based glue is also key. It's still kind of cutting my head off. So it's turning into kind of a Frankenstein desk because the sides are done with dowels, but the rest of it's going to be done with pocket holes because again, quick is what we're looking for, and quick and easy. But I think the results are still going to be pretty slick. Yep, all out. I always label my projects, and the acetone toner transfer method makes it even easier. And here I'm starting the application of several coats of water-based polyurethane. This is kind of my go-to finish for a lot of projects. And I almost forgot to chamfer the bottom of the legs to prevent splitting, but can't have that. So the first coat really raised the grain, and I went over the whole thing with 150 grit. And then I put on a second coat, and then I switched to 400 grit. I've had a third coat now, and it's building nicely, but I'm still going to go over it with 400 grit and put on at least one more coat on the legs. The top I might go up to 5 coats because it's going to be a desk. It's going to see heavy use, so I want it to have a really good solid finish on it. And you go really lightly. It doesn't take much, and then you run with the hand and I can feel it, smooths it right down. Really light. Don't do much at all at this point. So after 6 coats, the last 2 of which were wiped on rather than brushed, the top has a pretty nice smooth finish. However, I still usually dribble on a bit of water for lubricant and then buff it all with some 3M pads. This is all kind of like using steel wool, but you don't use steel wool on water-based finishes. And here we are with the desk upstairs and ready to be used. And so in closing, here's just a couple of close-up shots of the finished desk, and thanks for coming by, and we'll see you next time. And I didn't like that either. I think I'll record something downstairs for that part maybe.